good evening, or if you're watching in France, bonjour, Hugo. You're watching the Cheese Room live from the Man Cave with a caller. I'm joined by a fabulous panel this evening. So let's get straight to it. We're going to be covering lots of topics tonight. Who's on the plane? Who's not on the plane? Why are they not on the plane? What is the future for Harry Kane? I'm a poet and I didn't know it. We'll talk about that Dele Alli interview and cover off all the transfer news you need. So stay with us for the next 90 minutes. It'll be the best 90 minutes you'll see all season, pre-season anyway. HG, welcome. How is Vienna?
Bloody hot. 35 tomorrow. I like it though, but it is very, very hot. Vienna's good. Vienna waits for you.
I like it hot. And Vienna, if it is waiting for me, I am definitely. It's on my list of things to do. As soon as the kids get to an age we can really travel again, I'm coming out to see HG, and I expect one of those wonderful.
Hang on. What you mean is when the kids get to an age that I can leave them with my in-laws for a week, then I'll come out to Vienna. That's what you mean.
That is good, yeah. I'm coming out to Vienna. I want one of those HG bus top tours, and we can do the sights and. Maybe take me to that kebab place that you like as well. That would be
gosh.
Good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Kebab, falafel. Got it made.
Absolutely.
Had falafel tonight. It's really good.
Nice. James, how are you? Our resident student.
Good, very good. Had a lovely French dinner. I should start off with an apology actually, because I said usually the show's a lot better because I'm not there, but unfortunately you have to see me twice this week and HG. But yeah, lovely to be on. Thanks for having me on as ever. Cheers.
Well, it's absolutely not the case that it's better without you on. So welcome to the Cheese Room. And Cam, all the way from the land down under, you better run, you better take cover, mate. We're coming back in the ashes.
No comment there.
Because you know it's true, Cam.
You were the humdinger of a game, mate.
The choke has started in the bottom of the throat. Yeah. We are waiting.
See you later, Smudge.
Let's be honest, it's been a good series and enjoying it so far. We're 2-1 up, and I hope we go to 3-1 up. Yeah, but good morning from Melbourne town.
Yeah, you've been a bit lucky so far. Let's be honest, but
oh shit!
Yeah, the tide is turning, I'm looking forward to the next test. I don't think I've ever been so glued to cricket. Actually, it seems like in Test cricket, especially, that can be quite dull. But I think we'll all agree that England are really bringing the series to life, and Australia are trying their absolute most to bore everyone to death. So, welcome to the Cheese Room. But we're not here to talk about cricket. We're here to talk about football tonight. Please do let us know you're here in the chat and where you're watching from. That would be interesting. See if there's any other people in Austria or Australia or Portsmouth or wherever James is this week. So do let us know where you are in the chat and bring your questions as well. Do not forget to smash that like button. We really appreciate it. It costs you nothing, takes a second, so please do it. Let's get straight on with the I suppose the biggest talking point of today anyway. The squad list announced for the tour to Asia. Where are we? Asia, Oceanasia? Oh, I don't know what you want to call it. But...
Oceanasia.
Yeah, Australasia.
Australasia. Oh my gosh.
There we go. They're all coming out, HG. Who's not on the plane, HG? Tell us who's not made the gargantuan squad that we've got going on.
It is quite a big squad that is going. Based on my maths, there are only 5 first-teamers that aren't going, and they are Lloris, Forster, Sessegnon, Bentancur, and Brian Hill. And so 4 of those are injured, and then Lloris has been basically told to find a new home. We've got him in the Spurs kennels, and he's waiting for someone to come along and decide that his sad little face is the one that they want for Christmas. Lloris is probably the shock, but it's not much of a shock, is it? Considering he basically quit the club at half-time in Newcastle. No one really knows what happened there.
No.
So they're the 5 that aren't going. Everyone else you can think of, plus Divine and Scarlett, on the trip.
It's exciting, isn't it, James? We're going to get to see Tongi Underbelly strutting his stuff in Australia. Do you think? I mean, it's and Gio. It's a full squad, isn't it? And does it show that the door is open for all those players who've been cast aside by Conte, Mourinho, and maybe Nuno, are being given an opportunity to show what they can do for Ange?
Definitely shows that. I mean, especially with a guy like Ndombele, who I've slandered quite a lot on this show, and I don't, regret any of what I said in that regard. He's undoubtedly an incredibly talented player, as is Lo Celso, in my opinion. It's just a case of getting their motivation and getting the right level of work out of them, I suppose. And maybe Ange thinks, yeah, this is a guy I can potentially work with. He's a very different man manager than our previous three managers, so maybe that different approach will work better for these guys. But yeah, at very least, you can't say he's not giving them a chance. Take him on pre-season. If they turn out to be lazy there, then yeah, he's probably going to go, piss off. But he is giving everyone a chance, which is good.
Cam, do you really think? I mean, in all seriousness, Tongi Ndebele has had more lives than a cat, really, and so is Gio. To be fair, do you think that either of those two characters have got any kind of chance, seriously, of impressing and getting into the match day squads? Because you've got to bear in mind that they've been cast aside by previous managers, sent out on loan, and there's got to be a lot of people around the club who are hanging on to all of that stuff. It's not like, I know we've got a new manager, but surely the hierarchy at Spurs are trying to sell these guys, you would think.
I think they're definitely trying. Obviously, there's a big squad, so I do think that yes, they have a chance. I think Ange has said particularly to Tonga, that they're giving him a chance, but the proof will be in the pudding on the pitch and in these matches as well. I think Ange will take these not 100% seriously, these games, but the training sessions, but also these games, he's going to test, do they really want to be there? So you might see a higher intensity from some of these players that are out here, but I agree. I don't think Gio's got much of a chance. Rumours are he stinks it up amongst the locker room there and amongst colleagues there. I do think he wants to be sold as well. Tongi might be given a little bit more rope, but historically, I know Ange that if he makes his mind up, he's not going back. So I actually think they've both been given some chance, but not a big chance. They really want to be there. So the proof will be in the pudding in the training sessions and the practice matches.
And you have to think about that with Gio. He's probably got teams that will say to him, "Hey, like, we want you to be, a first team starter. We want you to be part of what we want to do." And that doesn't really look like it's going to happen at Spurs. So the idea of him being a sub at best at Spurs, it's weird because I think he's really well suited to Ange's system. And he could easily become that left-sided 8 in the system and be fighting with Ndombele for that spot. But you can imagine that he's looking at thinking, I don't need to wait 6 months to find out I'm not there. Whereas with Ndombele, I mean, he went to Napoli and he won the league as a sub. So being a sub at Spurs may be probably the best option he's got, or one of the best options. There won't be such a difference, but it is weird to think that. I mean, I think it's good to think that all of those players are getting a chance under Ange. That Ange has basically said, right, forget what happened before. Right, what happened before has gone. We all want to forget it, so why shouldn't the players? And when people talk about the chances that these players are being given, I do wonder sometimes, like, is it chances that managers are giving them or that fans are giving them? Because I feel like Conte never really gave Ndombele a chance. Do you know what I mean? Like, he didn't really give him a chance. That awful Morecambe game was under Conte, so I can't say that wasn't there. But before that, he played one game, the Liverpool game. So it's not as if Conte had said to Ndombele, "You're going to get a go." That never really happened, and so you can forget Poch with Ndombele because it was only 3 months, and you've got Mourinho who went up and down with him.
Yes,
it's kind of like, I feel like from fans' perspective, it feels much worse than maybe it actually has been. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dreaming that Ndombele has been slightly harshly treated, but I do think that the amount of chances the club are giving them isn't as many as everyone seems to think.
But he'll make his mind up. So Ange's the kind of guy. I agree with everything you're saying, HG. But he's the kind of guy. Once he makes his mind up, he makes his mind up. You're either staying because you want to be here, or you're out. And proof is in the pudding. Is every club Ange has been to, he's very decisive, and he'll get rid of the most talented player if he thinks he needs to succeed. Because he wants grafters, he wants workers, guys that want to be there.
And who's the players who are not on the plane? So I mean, if we go through that list, so Lloris, well, I mean, he's as we've said, he's au revoir, really, isn't he? The only question for me is, will we get a fee for him? We might be able to get a fee from Saudi. That's what I'm dreaming of. We get like 50 million from Al, whoever, for Lloris. But I'm probably daydreaming there, aren't I, James? I can't see us getting any money for him. He's probably free to leave on a free, isn't he?
Well, no, we'll always want something, but yeah, possibly. It's about trying to save wages, really, isn't it? We have a lot of high earners at the club, and especially if the rumours around Kane's contract are true and what we're potentially willing to pay him, we're going to want to free up some wages. So maybe. I don't know. It's Levy, though, so I don't know.
I think Hugo's on about 100k a week, isn't he? So, or thereabouts. So it would certainly be a big saving. So we don't really need to discuss Hugo too much, I think. And then the others are injured, aren't they? So Forster, Sessegnon, Bentancur, Hill. We all know about Bentancur. That's why he's not on the plane. Hill, do you know what injury he's got? HG? Is it something minor or?
The club said it was a back injury. Okay. I mean, you can decide to believe that or not if you want, but the club said it was a back injury. It doesn't feel like something I would believe, if I'm honest. But I'm sad because I think he would suit Ange football, and I wanted him to go. I wanted him to play well, and so the fact he's not going, and the fact that a back injury can mean anything. Do you know what I mean? Like he can't sit on a plane. Is that the problem? I mean, I don't know. So that's a sad one for me. But you're right. The others. I mean, they told us a few days ago that players like I think Spence might not go, and he's going. And there were a couple of others. I mean, we saw, I think, the picture today of Reguilon being injured in training. He had a cut down his shin from a Romero tackle, and he's on the plane. So yeah, it's a weird one. But there really aren't that many that are not going, and I genuinely think that's good. It's crazy because those 31 players, we're only playing 3 games. So some of them, I mean, I even forgot the young keeper Keeley who's going. But like some of them aren't going to play. I mean, they are literally there for a week of flying and doing promo stuff or training, but they're not really going to play. So it'll be interesting to see, how much time these players are going to get. Like, at what point is Ange going to say, I need to start thinking about the season? Because as soon as this tour's finished, we've only got 2 preseason games after that. So you'd like to think that at least one of those games we're going to have a team that at least starts somewhat close to what Ange thinks might be something we'll see against Brentford on opening day.
Yeah, I'd like to test on that list of players going. I would highly doubt Perisic is going if he's trying to look for a move back to Highjuk Split or however you pronounce it. I can't see him out here at all.
No, I mean, Perisic is on the plane.
Is he?
He's on the official list of players going. Spurs released the list, which they never really do. I mean, at least I don't remember them doing that. They certainly don't do it for games. They might do it for tours, but not for games. But yeah, Perisic is on the plane.
He's wanting to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect. I mean, I think we all think that 4 or 5 of those players who are on the plane will go.
Yes,
they will leave the club before the end of August. But I guess Ange. If he's looking for a 4th left winger or a 4th centre back, and he's trying to see who we can trust the most, then they get paid a lot of money. I mean, I think going to Australia for 3 days is pretty ridiculous. But if you were going to pay me X amount of money to do it, I'd be on that plane. So
Yeah, I mean they're going other places as well, aren't they? Is it Singapore
and Thailand? I think Thailand is after Australia, and then on to Singapore. But yeah, I mean, if this is a sponsorship thing, or if we're trying to build the brand in Australia, or whatever we could say, to get there at Sunday morning Perth time, You play a game the Tuesday evening Perth time, and then you leave on the Wednesday. I mean, it's ridiculous. Surely you would go for a longer time, but Spurs have decided that that was never part of the plan, and I
Players will
guess
be
that's it.
knackered, won't they? How much travelling?
I mean, Cam's done this journey more than me, but I suspect if you're flying to Perth, the way they've worked it is if they go the end of the day, right? So let's say they fall asleep normal time, European time, and so they're asleep for 6, 7, 8 hours on the plane. They wake up, they've got another 8 to 10 hours, I guess, on the plane, and then when they land, it's early morning, so they can sleep as much as they want on the plane. Really, that would be the best thing, because when they land, hopefully it will minimise the jet lag.
If the
Cam,
club,
have you done that journey? Do you know? Is it better to leave evenings or mornings?
it's 24 hours on the plane, mate. It'll bug you up either way. But I've done all of the above at different times of the day. But you're knackered because you're 24 hours on a plane. If Tottenham's smart, they would have gone the Qantas route and gone London straight to Perth, where there are no stops. And I think that's a clear 17 hours on the plane and no stops whatsoever. And I've had mates go on the London to Perth trip on Qantas, and they've felt a little bit better because it means that they've landed back in their destination country, done a little bit of time there, and it didn't hit them as much. It still hit them. How many time zones is it? But if Tottenham's smart, they would have gone down that route because that's the quickest and most direct way. Yeah. I mean, Perth to me technically is in the middle of nowhere anyway, but they'll get affected. But I'm going to assume they've gone the Qantas route and just gone London straight to Perth.
Yeah, and that would make sense. If it's a 17-hour flight, then you can be, in theory, awake for 5 or 6 and sleep the rest. Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad way of doing it. So maybe the jet lag will be minimal, but it just seems a long way to go for 3 days. And to play West Ham as well. Oh, come on.
Of all the teams. I do wonder who we're flying with, though. We must have chartered a whole plane, you would imagine, wouldn't you?
I would have, if they've
the only
done
planes
their
with
research.
range that far are the A380s, I think, haven't they?
No. They've got the 777s. Most planes can actually, for fact, most planes can do London to Sydney in a lot of the Boeings and a lot of the Airbuses. It's just that they've tested it. They can do it. It's just that when you add the people element to it and the weight of that, it's also the human effect.
It's a bit of a problem then, really, isn't it?
Well, it's not that. Qantas did tests from New York to Sydney. I think it was about 18 or 19 hours, and they tested how the body goes in a lengthened time of altitude, because it's obviously a stopover has got multiple benefits: refuel, shopping, whatever. But it's how the body's affected by a longer session of altitude. So it works. It's just that they haven't obviously done it to a commercial level yet, but they've proven in various test flights from London to Sydney it can work.
Be interesting to see what plane they're on. We could get our resident nerd Steve Diver tracking it or something. That would be quite fun. Oh yeah, I recommend this route via Poland, Zimbabwe, and Saudi. Yeah, in fact, that's way too direct for Steve.
So let's say they land Sunday morning, Spurs. They're going to have a training session, I would imagine, on Sunday. It will be most likely public or some kind of public access to it. Yeah. Maybe that will be on the Monday, but they'll have various things that they're doing when they land, right? Yeah. Because they land in the morning, they're not going to be allowed a day to recover. It will be, right, get to work. But I don't know. It just seems an awful long way to go. I said this on Wednesday, I think, that I would love it if we had a European-based pre-season for once. We're always flying off somewhere, whether it's Asia, Australia, America, even South Africa we've done, I think, once or twice. It just... can we just stay in Europe? I know Liverpool are playing down the road tomorrow? Yeah, Saturday. And it just seems like Arsenal were in Germany, Liverpool are in Germany, and we're going off to flipping Australia to play West Ham and Leicester. It's not I don't think that's how a big club needs to operate. And if that's who we want to be, we need to do better than this.
The Stars have a line though, haven't they? Appointing Ange. It's the tour made in heaven. So
then go there for a longer period of time.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think, weirdly enough, the Singapore game that should have been against Roma and now isn't, had that been the second of the stops, we may well have stayed in Australia. I genuinely think that. But because we've got to go to Thailand to play Leicester, Championship Leicester.
And that's to do with their sponsors, surely.
There you go. So it's I don't know. Like I wish it was more about football and less about sponsors. Our pre-seasons.
I do hazard a guess that Ange is going to push for a Melbourne tour next. He did it for Celtic, where they came down here, and I hazard a guess he's going to come.
Well, you're assuming he'll still be in a job by now. That's a big assumption. The only thing he might be pushing for is, another job. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully that's not the case, and Ange is a long-termer.
Correct.
James having a few tech issues, are you, James?
It's been a final day of my internet. It's just decided in the past 20 minutes that it wants to not work properly. So that's fun.
Okay, true. Drop your questions in the chat for the squad announcement, your questions in the chat for Harry Kane's contracts or leaving, etc., and we will get to them through the show. Now, I want to play a little game with you. We've got obviously our squad list that we can see. So of those people that are on the plane, I want
who do we leave in Australia?
I want a name. That's a good game. I want a name from each of you, and you're going to explain why you think that player is going to have a big season for Spurs, but it can't be a regular starter already for Spurs. Does that make sense? So, James, you go. Who's resurrecting their career?
Tricky one. Who's resurrecting their career? Okay. I think Reggie might do, actually.
Okay.
I know, hot take.
I agree with you, actually. I agree.
Reason I say that is you look at our options on that side in defence. I think Destiny, Udi, however you say his name, we don't know how he'll play in the Premier League yet. Perisic isn't a left back. Davies, I like Davies, but he doesn't offer much going forward. And Sessegnon's terrible. So realistically, I think... Yes. Realistically, I think he's our best natural left back in terms of also offering attacking options. We won't be playing a back three of wing backs. Obviously, Ange wants full backs who can also offer a lot going forward and do defensive work. So I can actually see him definitely getting a look in and being pretty solid for us. I think he's better than Emerson, for example. So I can definitely see him coming in and having an impact for us.
Okay, Reggie. Cam. Don't say Reggie.
Yves Bissouma. I do think he did not play. Obviously, he was injured and then he was buggered up by Conte. But I do think Bissouma, here in the training pitches, is really enjoying the sessions. And we got a small, sample size in the last couple of games last season when he was unshackled by Conte. So I'm going with Bissouma.
Lindy, thanks for pointing out that people are being incredibly tight with the like button tonight. So if you could please smash the like button, nearly 100 people watching, only 23 likes, only a quarter of our viewers like us. That's terrible. But Bissouma, I think, Cam, that's an obvious choice. I think you've played it very safe there, if I may say.
Okay, then I was going to say Hill, but if he's wanting to leave, I agree with JP on this, but he reminds me of a young Marcus Rojas who used to play for Melbourne Victory, small and diminutive. He can definitely slide in the attack there. But, yeah, I was definitely going to say Hill, but if he's wanting to go with a back injury, not wanting to go, it shows signs he might want to leave. So Brian Hill for sure. He works well in an Ange system.
I think Hill wants to go to sunny Spain, to be honest. But That's my take on it. HG, come on then, save the best till last. Go on, say it, Dembele. Say it.
No, so the obvious. Do I have to pick from these returning loanees that other managers didn't like? Is that what we're going from? Because Cam didn't, because he went with Bissouma.
I know,
But
and I flamed him.
are
But just
we
a
looking?
player
Are
who's
we
not a
looking?
regular is good enough for me.
Okay, not a regular. Because if you're talking about who had a crap season last season and won't do this year, Son. But if you're looking at those players who
Flame him, flame him, flame him.
like, it's either going to be a centre back that no one likes or one of those midfielders. Like, because Spence has never really done anything for Spurs, never had a chance, so you can't really blame him. So you're looking at Reggie, Dombele, Lo Celso, or someone like Sanchez or Rodon or Dyer. Do you know what I mean? People who aren't expecting much from. Like I've said before, I think Sanchez is probably a decent centre back in an Ange system. I don't think he wants to stay, so I don't think this will ever come to fruition. But if I was looking at those players, Lo Celso, Dombele, and Sanchez are the three that really fit what Ange wants to do. They're the type of players. I mean, Lo Celso especially. The fact that he is a hard-working attacking midfielder, that's the kind. It's just he's all 1 foot. That's the problem with Lo Celso. Like if Ange has got those eights, they need to be a bit more. I don't want to say adaptable, but like with Lo Celso, you kind of know what he wants to do. If you play him on the right hand side, he wants to cut in and shoot. If you play him on the left, he's going to favour one side. So, all right, I've sat on the fence long enough.
Buying yourself
Flame
time.
him.
I
Flame.
will go. Yeah, I'll go Dombele. Just the dreamer. The dreamer in me. Dombele fits. If you can get him running at any kind of speed
Or
and
running.
believing in the team,
Yeah.
then Dombele will be that person. I mean, that there is no doubt. He's the one who will turn it around if Ange can unlock the desire.
Mm.
Agree.
Well, let's hope so. I hope you're right, because I'd love to see Ndombele come good. I genuinely would. I think he's an incredibly talented player. But yeah, I don't think he will, if I'm being really honest. I just don't think he will. And I don't think Lo Celso will, sadly, because I think his attitude is probably more the issue. And I'm only basing it's ridiculous. We base these things on things we hear, right? Or we see on Twitter, through the media, through word of mouth. I mean, it's probably crap. That Lo Celso has a bad attitude and he's not liked in the dressing room could be complete and utter bollocks.
I think it is. Because
Um,
you've never heard it at any of his other clubs, and we only heard it at Spurs once he left.
Yeah.
So it just seems very convenient to kind of, he's gone. Now we can throw him under the bus. We can make it seem as if he was the problem, not us. So look, don't get me wrong. This also never looks happy. He's always got that permanent I don't want to be here. Look, he does have that look, but
But so does
it
Romero.
everywhere.
I saw people flaming Romero because he looked disinterested walking into. I'm not being funny. Do you look really interested first thing in the morning when you walk into work?
Hey,
I
my
don't think so.
first day back in September, because it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
I've had 2 months off doing whatever the heck I want, and on that first day back, am I excited to be there?
No.
Not to work, maybe to see a few people, but I'm not bounding up to the door, high-fiving everyone on my way in.
But do you have social media watching you walking back into your office?
Maybe I should get someone to film me arrive my first day back in September to see how I'm dressed, what my attitude is. It's crazy. Like when you're there, it's what you do when you're inside the building, not what you do outside of it. That to me is irrelevant.
The conclusions people draw from a snippet of information are quite frankly just ludicrous. Like, and people need to have a word with themselves. Like, go splash your faces with some ice cold water and look in the mirror at yourself and ask yourself, are you right in the head making a judgment like that about a clip you've seen for a couple of seconds of that particular thing? Utter tosh.
People are looking. I mean, I'm going to say that I probably do this too, right? But people are looking for something that will help them like help what they already believe. The whole confirmation bias thing. I'm sure I do this at some cases. I try not to, but I think it's a very natural thing to do. If you've kind of decided that this is how you see someone, any kind of action they do that kind of backs that up, you're like, oh yeah, I was right all along. That's who they are.
That's
And
unconscious bias.
bearing in mind what came out yesterday with Dele's interview, I think we should all realise that you can't do that. You never ever know what's going on. So yeah, as much as like Dembele looks as if he's walking through treacle when he walks to the thing, I don't really care. I care about what happens on the training pitch. Ange will only care what happens on the training pitch. Now we may not get to see as much of that, but if it, I've seen a couple of clips, certainly this week, of Dembele doing things on the ball in training, running full speed in training, looking like it. You think, is that really him? Thankfully, he wears that stupid thing on his head, so you know it's him. It's obvious. But it's when you think of it like that, like why aren't we all looking at that and saying this is going to be the next thing? We've now seen evidence of it. But the point is, none of us really believe that will last, so we don't. And that there is that confirmation involved in it. Like if you see something that you think is already true, you will remember it much more than something that doesn't really go with what you previously believe.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. When you form a judgment of someone within seeing them, like that's just the way the brain works, isn't it? So I think you're absolutely right, HG, and I think you're absolutely right. And we'll come on to the Dele interview as well. So I've got some stuff to say about that.
Can I add in there just a very quick thing? It's not like in Ange's press conference, what was it, about 4 to 7 days ago or something? It was 53 minutes long. He's already done a fair amount of research and knowing where the club's at, even finishing it himself at the time. So it's not like he's coming in here with his eyes shut. He's done a fair amount of prep and study work there. So I think I know I'm saying the obvious, but he's probably already in his mind just about to cross off a couple of players and giving him the chance to potentially redeem himself. Like it's going to be interesting over the next couple of weeks where he goes, you out, you in. It'd be interesting. An interesting watch.
I'm looking at some of the comments, right? That people are talking with each other, which is always good to see. But
bring them up. Let's go.
There's this one comment here that King Huddle was put up, and King Huddle, he says later on that he means about during the game. He's not talking about outside of the game. He means during the game itself that Romero's body language isn't great. And, I would agree. Last season, Romero's focus was the World Cup. Perhaps he was right to make that focus being the World Cup since they went on and won it. But it's like, I don't like that about Romero. I really don't. But I think we could all, maybe I'm looking for evidence to back up what I now think, but it just seems that we all remember that time about 10 years ago when Sherwood was in charge and we went to Anfield, and before the game you saw Vertonghen just leaning back against the wall as if he was like, there wasn't a serious football match ahead of him. He wasn't playing at Anfield. He could have been with his kids. He could have been with his brothers. There was no focus at all. His body language looked terrible. And I think a lot of us, certainly me, I didn't blame that on Vertonghen. I blamed that on Sherwood because I feel like your manager will affect your motivation quite a lot. And I suspect last season that may well have been true in other ways as well. That our managers I don't want to throw Nuno in there because I don't think Nuno did this, but Jose and Conte, they both threw players under the bus regularly, which to me will not help their motivation. You are doing nothing. The odds of finding someone who's going to, you've humiliated me publicly, now I'm going to show you, I don't think that exists. I don't think there are many kids that I teach who would react like that. Most of them would just say, F you, and they'll go on doing what they want. They won't care. So it just strikes me that maybe that played a big role in the body language of the players last season on the pitch. They knew that they were doing something that they weren't great at doing, and they wish they weren't. But if you want to play, and players do want to play, then you do what the manager says. So it's the body language is a massive thing. It is a massive thing, but sometimes it indicates more than just the player. It indicates the player's attitude towards the manager. And I think as fans, we watched last season and we had that same attitude towards the manager and towards his tactics that the players did. That's my opinion anyway.
I think you talk about body language. I mean, some of Mourinho. I mean, he's one of the most decorated managers in the world. Mourinho's body language at times is atrocious.
Yeah.
In terms of being motivational, I think Ange different kettle of fish. I think Ange, he's up and down like a fiddler's elbow, and we'll let you know exactly what he thinks all the time. I mean,
like you can be a happy clappy manager, right? And you
Yeah.
can just be positive all the time, and people will turn around and be like, "Okay, give it a rest." We've seen all those, those one sentence positive messages things.
Yeah.
But the point is, I would still rather have that than someone who decides, you know what, I don't want to be positive. You're crap, and I'm going to tell you that you're crap until you prove to me that you're not. That doesn't fly. It's like I'm more likely to punch someone square in the face for doing that than I am to turn around and like, I'll show you, mister. It just seems very, very backward.
Agreed. And we'll have some good coverage of the tour down under, thanks to the Aussie boys who I think are going to do match reviews and various other stuff. Has that been run past you first, Cam? You all right with that? Yeah, good. Sign up to that.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, good stuff.
At about 1 a.m. in the morning, because Perth is 2 hours behind. Well, 5 years behind, to be honest. But yeah.
What is it with Australian city rivalry? Like you don't get that in the UK.
The North versus the South.
Londoners just think all Northerners are weird, and anything north of Watford is north. That's it.
London, Manchester.
I think in the UK it seems to be everyone hates London and thinks that London hates them, and London just doesn't really think about them. It's kind of like West Ham versus Spurs, to be honest. Like they're desperate. They really hate us, and well, we don't. You're kind of just annoying. Like the thing is that weirdly enough, I'm a Southerner, but I much prefer living in the north of England. So I'm maybe not the one to have this conversation. It's just it's an attitude and a community aspect that I've personally seen more in the north than I have in the south. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the south, but if you grow up around London, it's very much, to me, it was very much we are going to do our own thing, and it wasn't this of like the idea of having the Scouse mentality of like you're from Liverpool. It doesn't matter if you're Everton or Liverpool. We're all from Liverpool. That doesn't exist down south, and I wish it did. To be honest, I really do.
Without the accent, though, yeah, without the accent.
Yeah.
I don't want to make any more enemies, so I'm going to say nothing now. We'll talk about accents in the UK, but
I've worked all over the UK, and I've always managed to get on with pretty much everyone. All right, so it's I don't think it's that big a thing, but you Aussies certainly do like to put the boot into each other. That's all I'm saying. And we're coming for you in the fourth test, mate. Just saying, it's going to happen. The comeback's on. You can be in denial all you like.
Don't take the bait.
Talking of denial, I put a poll on Twitter earlier today. I'm just going to get the very latest results of which. And the poll said pick one of three options. Kane stays and re-signs with Spurs. I love that eye roll HG. That was the wrong point. Kane goes to Munich for 100 million and Kane leaves on a free. Those were the three options, and the vote was very split. So I'm going to ask you guys and James if he ever comes back. Which option would you vote for? HG, so leaves on a free, Munich for 100 million plus, or re-signs with Spurs?
Which do I think is going to happen?
Yeah.
I think he's going to leave on a free.
Okay, thank you. And Cam?
I starting to think Bayern's got purpose in what they're doing here. I want them to stay first and foremost, but I actually think there's purpose behind what Bayern's doing, and I want them to stay, but I'm going to edge towards Bayern, even though I think I'm going to put that there. There's something happening there. I want him to stay, but he could go. He's got agreed personal terms, so and Bayern's in town. Might go with that.
if there really is only 35 likes out of 133 watching, and there's more than that watching, then you need to hang your heads in shame. Come on, hit the like button. Costs you nothing. Takes a second. We really appreciate it.
Pretty please.
Pretty please smash the like button. And I promise I'll stop going on about it. Right, results of the poll. So,
what did Pavel think?
Well, there's like 300 odd votes. So, you know, for something that I put out earlier on today, that's not a bad response, really. The results are that Kane re-signs with Spurs at 48% of the poll. So nearly half the people taking the poll. Now, what does that say about our fan base? Optimism. They're optimistic.
No comment. No comment, caller. Don't get me to say that.
I think Harry loves Spurs, wants to break Shearer's record, going to stay in the Premier League. You know, you got to admire people's enthusiasm, haven't you, Cam? You know, you know all about enthusiasm, being Australian.
He's flaming me multiple times this morning, HG. This is horrendous. No, I think they're highly optimistic. I think I'm just being realistic with what I'm thinking. If Levy's giving Bayern time to talk, that gives me a little bit more reason as to Levy wants to make hay while the sun shines in terms of cash. But I do want him to stay. But I'm playing the realistic move.
It's interesting. I don't know if we've all watched the Hot Ones episode that Harry Kane was on, right?
Well, he referred to it as the club I'm at now, which is...
I mean, this is it. Like, he talks about the favourite chant, and I was like, okay, this will be interesting. And then he picks the one about himself, which is really not interesting. But he talks about, they say that I'm, one of our own. But then he kind of talks about it as if, like, he's been accepted by Spurs fans as being one of them, but that he actually isn't one of them.
Yes.
And it was very, very revealing. Kind of like Harry Winks is a Spurs fan, right? We all know that he is one of our, as much as he's not at Spurs anymore. And Lancashire is one of our own, and Solomon, you could probably say, is a Spurs fan somewhat. But Harry Kane was very weird about that. Like, I love that they think I'm one of their own, seem to be the attitude. And I'm like, dude, like, I mean, I don't think you're the smartest bloke in the world. But if anyone was looking at those words and exactly what he said, it didn't come across that Harry Kane is actually Spurs. Not that I care. I care what he does for Spurs. But it was just interesting that was the choice. And if Harry Kane isn't Spurs through and through, then, the only option is to see where the land lies next year and decide what to do on a free.
Agree with that, Cam?
I want to agree that he actually stays, but Levy giving airtime to Bayern and others, I think Levy's got skin in the game. If he's the guy in charge that let him go on a free, he would be crucified in the media, fans, amongst other things. And being a finance person, he wants to make hay, as I said, make as much money as possible, for even by his most, valuable asset. He's a money guy. He thinks to the dollar or the pound, and pound sterling in this case. And me, and the realist in me is, I think he's just chumming up the waters to get the maximum return for his number one asset.
I want to point this out because this is a really good comment.
You do that, I'm going to get a drink.
That Kevin's put here, right? He's right. He's absolutely right. I have just done that, right? I watched that. I think it's like, I'm not interested in watching anything to do with Harry Kane, weirdly. And I don't watch the chicken show, as I'm now going to call it forevermore. That doesn't interest me either, watching people, eat chicken while being asked questions. However, it's absolutely right. The way that Harry Kane answered that, I found interesting. And I do think that leaving on a free would be the smart thing for him to do. To leave his options open. Like, he would be doing Spurs a favour, weirdly, I think, if he left for Bayern right now. I do believe that. Because it kind of means that he's the one making the decision rather than, I can now do what I want next summer. So
what? Not Charlie making the decisions this time? He was an absolute Einstein.
Look, I mean, the contract itself was crazy. We all know that. They have learned that, surely. But if being tied down has meant that Kane can't do what he wants to do, well, then the best thing you need is to not be tied down at all. And right now, it looks as if Levy won't consider selling within England, and I don't think anyone within England would pay the ridiculous money that Levy would want to sell within England. And so, as much as he might go to Bayern for 100 million now, stay a year, win the Bundesliga, and then sort over to someone else in England next summer, he could easily do that as well. But that would be better for Spurs than leaving next summer and going wherever he wants within England. So I just think that Kane has all the leverage, and if Kane is smart, he will leave Tottenham next summer. Even if we went and won the league this year, surely that just means that he's then gone and done everything he can do at Spurs. Do you know what? Like, I don't think that would make him say, "Oh, well, if we fluked the league somehow," and this is not going to happen. But if it was to happen, the Spurs fluke the league, I don't think he's going to sit there thinking, "Oh, now we've got a really good chance of winning the Champions League." I don't think he will. I think he'll realise that maybe it was a bit of a fluke that he won something with Spurs, and he wants to go somewhere that has a better chance of winning things regularly. Like, I love Ange, and I think Spurs will be much better next year. But Kane will want to fight for titles, not fight for Champions League. And frankly, that seems to be where Spurs are and will be for a couple of seasons. So I don't know. Like, that's not being like, it might seem negative. I just think that, like, logically, when you've been tied down thanks to a contract you've signed, you don't want to be under any contract. That will be the logical place to be.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree in whole. I'm not that I'm disagreeing, but Kane agreeing to terms just also giving consent for him to leave indicates that, yes, he's leaving his options open, but he's still open to joining Bayern as well. It's kind of like he'd be happy if the transfer goes ahead.
Like, people ask me all the time, are you going to live in Austria for the rest of your life? Because we're not Austrian. We are foreigners. I do not have an Austrian passport, right? And people ask me that. And my answer is pretty much the same. I don't know. We'll see. I'd be happy if it did. I wouldn't be unhappy if it didn't, because it would mean that something better has come along. Like, that's kind of how I don't have to think long term. But people ask that question. So keeping your options open just seems the most normal thing to do. I understand it. How you do it is important, because Sol Campbell kept his options open, but he lied while doing it, right? And Pochettino kept his options while he was signing new contracts for Spurs. So it's all about how you go about it, but we have to expect that everyone is keeping their options open. Like, if Saudi Arabia offer me 700 grand a week, do you know what I mean? That's not an option I would have expected a year ago. But if I'm free to do what I want and I can take it, then it's nice to have that option without being tied down in any way.
I think, in the utopian land, he does sign a new contract with Spurs. I don't think it would be a long-term one. I think it'd be like 2 years tops, to be honest.
He's got one big deal left, right? If he leaves next year, he's 31 next summer, right? Mm-hmm. So he's barely 31 when he signs for another team.
Yeah,
he'll get a 4 or 5 year deal easily. Like, Lewandowski went to Barcelona at 34. Like, Harry Kane, I don't think is interested in a 1 or 2 year. Like, it's weird. Having said that about the idea of not being tied down, but if you're tied down on super money, doesn't matter so much. If you're at a super club on super money, like Bale signed his 6 year deal at 600 grand a week and was quite happy with that and retired basically as soon as that deal was over. Like, Harry Kane may well be thinking, like, he could be thinking, I'm going to play until I'm 40. But I suspect that you'd be looking at a 4 or 5 year deal if you're Kane next summer. You're not looking at a 1 or 2 year deal at Spurs to then maybe do that again somewhere else, hoping to finally get over the hill. Like, you'd be saying, like, if Kane gets the chance to spend 5 years at Man City starting next summer, he's taking it. He's absolutely taking it.
I mean, yeah. And do you think that Bayern will come up with the money? No.
No, they have the money. I've no doubt about that. I mean, Bayern need a striker. Like, as everyone who watches knows, like, my German team is Eintracht Frankfurt. They won the Europa League 2 seasons ago. They're in the Conference League for this season, but they've lost their manager and a couple of their best players have gone on freeze. So they're at this kind of point of what do we do next? And they have a striker last season who might have been the top scorer in the Bundesliga. And this is what Bayern would usually do. They would usually buy the best player from a worse team and just build that up. And Kolo Muani apparently is up for sale at 100 million euros. So if you're Bayern, you can spend 100 million on Kolo Muani and be the top dogs in Germany pretty much guaranteed for the next 3-4 years. Or you can spend 100 million on Kane, get that, and maybe, because he is that good, maybe be in the realms of actually winning the Champions League season upon season. Now, I don't think Bayern's squad is good enough to win the Champions League.
No,
And
far off.
Like last season, they were poor, and Dortmund should have won the league. Even the Nagelsmann was there. Tuchel came in. They weren't much better under Tuchel. They were pretty poor. I think they've signed pretty good players this year. But I don't look at that Bayern squad and think, yes, with Tuchel, they are going to be challenging over the next year or two. Maybe with Kane, they will. But it's still a bit of a gamble. But I just think if I'm Bayern Munich, Kane is the world-class player and Kolo Muani is a decade. Could be the next Lewandowski and could be there for ages. So you got that choice. But 100 million on a 30-year-old or 100 million on a 24-year-old. I mean, if it was Spurs, I'd want them to spend it on the 24-year-old. So it'd be an interesting choice.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate for a moment. And you can play along in the chat and let us know what you think. Do Spurs then need to go out and splash big on, I mean, it's been rumoured Vlahovic would be the backfill from Juve. Obviously, we were previously very interested in him when I think it was when the Man City thing was kicking off with Kane, wasn't it? So do you see us dipping big into the transfer market to replace Kane, or do you think that we would maybe strengthen a couple of areas and play, I mean, I would say play Richarlison up top. Cam, what's your views?
I'll play Richarlison up top. I think he's an Ange system player, a grafter, a presser, everything Ange wants. He's more suited to Ange's system than Kane is. So I do want 2 centre-backs, not the one, because I'm not convinced Romero wants to stay, but I would keep Richarlison there and put it into certain areas on the pitch, like 2 centre-backs, to be honest. So, yeah.
Do you think it's crazy to suggest if we did go out and buy 2 top-quality centre-backs, HG, that we would be stronger than with Kane in the team?
I still think that most of last season was based on how we were set up. Our struggles were based on how we were set up, and we were overrun. And it was less to do with the quality of the centre-backs. Don't get me wrong, we need better centre-backs. But I think that Ange changing the system would be almost as good to the fortunes of Spurs than buying centre-backs and selling Kane would. I don't like Spurs selling their best player, and I'd like to think that given the size we are, we don't need to. We don't need to sell our Berbatovs and our Carricks to then reinvest in the team. We're already quite a big side. We've got to that stage now where we shouldn't have to worry so much about that. But like in a perfect world, we'd buy 2 decent centre-backs who complement each other and would go on and along with Romero become a pretty good trident. But trio, not trident. I don't know, but it's.
I was thinking that for a moment.
Really good missile defense system. It's like I don't like. Even though we've seen at Spurs that when we have sold bigger players, we've got better. It may not have happened straight away, but we have actually risen. But it's the recruitment. Who are you going to get with that money? If we buy poorly, then it won't help. If we buy well, and the price tag has little to do with that, then I could see that we are better. But like if Spurs ever want to get to where we want them to be, we need better defenders more than we do the next Alan Shearer, because Alan Shearer didn't win titles even though how good he was. He needed better defenders, and I think that Spurs, as much as we are an attacking team, we have to figure out that what we want is 3 or 4 defenders that will be with us for the next 3 or 4 years. And I think Cam's right. Romero's probably not one of them, but if we look like we're progressing, he might be happy to play longer. You know, it's tough.
I mean, our success on the Poch was built on Toby +1, wasn't it? That +1 being Jan for the majority of the time, and that really provided the solid foundation which that almost team was built on, wasn't it? I mean, that just proves the point, really.
Yeah,
I think.
I see the comment saying that Shearer won the title Blackburn. I know he did, right? But I also, weirdly enough, that Blackburn centre-back partnership, what was it? Colin Hendry
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and Henning Berg, right? Like, it clearly it's about whether they work together. But Shearer went to Newcastle and scored goals and scored lots of goals and was ridiculous, a great goal scorer for Newcastle. But they got to an FA Cup final twice, maybe. Like I don't feel like they were ever that close. The Newcastle that got close were before Shearer even got there, weren't they? Was that maybe Shearer's first 2 seasons? I forget the timeline. But for a lot of Shearer's time at Newcastle, they weren't anywhere near that. So it's like, if you look at the best teams, like, they do have good defenders, or more importantly, have the system where the defenders don't have to defend. And that's what Arsenal did last year. Like, Zinchenko, when he had to defend, was ropey. But this is it. But when he had to defend, for 80% of those games last season, Arsenal never had to defend because of how they played. Yeah. So I think that's a massive part of it.
I agree. I agree. I was moaning about the system all last season, and I still don't understand why, in effect, through stubbornness, we hamstrung ourselves so much of the season. We were getting overrun every week in midfield. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
When armchair pundits like us can see it, and everyone watching this can see it, it beggars belief that the people leading the club can't. But yeah, we should. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Kane saga, because it's going to be fundamental in terms of what Spurs do for the next few years, isn't it? Really.
But also with Kane, every team that I'm just thinking that Ange, particularly here with Victory and Raw, Yokohama, and even Celtic, I get Kane's incredible. I'm not denying he's absolutely special. But his wins and his system comes off multiple goal scorers. It's not just filtered to Kane. It would be he's scoring. Particularly, I remember going to Victory games when I was a Melbourne Heart fan, and they're murderous with multiple goal scorers. It wasn't just Archie Thompson who was the 9 there. It was other players there. The goals built on system, not via just the 9.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I know much about Celtic under Ange. I don't know a great deal. But the guy that scored all the goals for them, this Furuhashi guy, like, from what I've seen, he was a hard worker and he was a decent finisher. Like, he didn't find the bottom corner every time, but he got good contact on the ball. And because of how Ange's teams played, he was close enough to goal that it didn't necessarily matter whether he found the corner or not. And so if you're looking for a striker like that, someone who's decent with both feet and actually just connecting with the ball, then almost an Ange 9 doesn't have to be the all singing, all dancing 9 that Kane is, right?
Yes, that's my point. Yeah,
yeah. I want Kane to stay.
Yes,
but
same.
The idea of finding someone, as you said, like Archie Thompson. I don't know much about Archie Thompson apart from he scored all those goals in that one game for Australia, But I don't know how great of a player he was. But again, if the system works and you've got more than one threat, right? And under Ange's system, you have 5 attacking players. If you're winning the ball, you've got those 2 8s making runs into midfield.
100%.
You've got your 9 and your wings.
Yes.
And so last season we had Kane with wherever he had 30-something. Son, I think, hit double figures all in barely. And then after that, you're looking at central midfielders with flipping Højbjerg.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's clearly... And so as much as we conceded 60-odd goals, it's a miracle we scored 64. It is an absolute miracle that we somehow scored more than we conceded. You want the system to be better. And last year, our system sucked. It really did.
Agreed. Moving on then, the Dele interview, obviously a hard-hitting interview yesterday, came out, Gary Neville on the overlap. Cam, I take it you've seen the interview, and what were your first thoughts on it?
I watched the interview when I was at the gym on Thursday night because it had been released, I think, obviously in the morning in UK Europe time. So I watched it whilst I was at the gym, and the first 5 minutes was just Neville and that. I didn't so much more engaged. Then when he mentioned obviously his addiction to the tablets, and then he was molested and hanging off a bridge and all that, I was like, whoa. There's trauma here, absolute trauma. And I'm actually really happy that he sought help, and he has consciously sought help and rehabilitation based upon all the trauma he's gone through. Because to me, he was going down the path that he could actually, neck himself. And so there was a part of me where I thought this is very heavy, but a part of me very happy that he's in a far better place now, that he's actively himself seeking help, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He's still got a lot to go through, but you almost needed the tissues for some of the stuff that he mentioned he went through.
Yeah.
But he's definitely in a far better place from what he says, and for his own acknowledgement of seeking help, which I'm very encouraged by.
Yeah. Ange?
I mean, it feels as if that when the football was going well, he was able to push everything aside, right? And for various reasons, the football stopped going well, right? And so then everything else came back pretty quickly, and because it was never dealt with, it was never gone fully. And so to me, it was a story about a footballer that every single football fan watched, but it wasn't about football. Right, and that's what makes it so special. It wasn't about Dele and whether he was doing everything he could on a football pitch. It was about Dele the human, and like, is he able to be the kind of person he wants to be, to do as much as he can to put everything behind him. I don't think I ever expect Dele to be what he was. I really don't. But then, like, the best thing he said to me, was when he recognised that there was a difference between being brave and fearless, right? Because he said, like, I think there's a difference, and he's right. There is clearly a difference. Like, some people can be fearless, but it's very different from being brave. And I just, like, obviously, like everyone who's watching, I'm sure we all want Dele to get better. And if that equals success on a football pitch, then brilliant. Not against Spurs, obviously. But still, even if it was a goal against Spurs, we'd all cheer. Because it's a weird thing that I don't know if Dele considers himself Spurs to the extent that lots of Spurs fans do. Because, everything, really pretty much everything that he did on a football pitch came from being a Spurs player. Mm-hmm. Like, he did stuff at MK Dons, but like we all remember that preseason game in Munich where he nutmegged Modric, and he was 18, 19, and like, we all thought that doesn't happen very often. Like, what the heck? This kid is just playing the game. He's not worried about where he is or who he's against. And we all love that, because I think most of us would worry, right? If we were in that situation, we would worry. Am I really going to be strong enough to do what I know I can do against the very best, or in a high pressure situation? And for Dele, he could have been anywhere. So it's awful that he had to do the interview when he did, because clearly there was a time pressure involved. But we can all say, thanks for doing it, because as guys especially, like, it's not something we do, right? And so to see someone come and do it publicly and be okay with it, and I think for most men, the response that has come is probably what's the biggest thing. It's a great thing for Dele, but it's also good enough for us to realise that, if something's not going so well, your mates aren't necessarily going to just take the piss all the time. That they will actually be more than just that. Like, banter is great, but we all know deep down there's more to it.
Yeah, I also think that with what Dele said at the end there, he says, if I've helped at least one person with all of my experience, I've done my job. He said it along those lines. And judging from what I've had friends in the UK say to me, and these are non-Tottenham fans, but they've watched the interview, it was quite eye-opening and quite, what's the word? Quite confronting for them to think about things as well. So I think the interview is maybe a watershed for a lot of people in the UK, particularly because it makes them think for people that might be going through a hard time. Because let's be honest, Dele's done this in the face of millions and millions of people watching this.
And I think like to get to those levels, right, to get to the elite level of football where Dele was, you have to be very single-minded. It's not it's not a collaborative experience. You know, you're not like you might be helping your friends who are in different positions, but clearly someone who's going to do your job, there's more competition there. And so like you'd expect everyone who knows Dele to come around and say the things that they've come out and said. There's a whole number of professionals that have, shown love to Dele for doing it. But again, for Dele, it's a very singular experience, right? Me and my problems are not you and your problems, right?
100%.
You might have them, and I might be willing to hear about your problems, but I'm not going to share mine because, I don't. We get like that. I mean, and I think it's understandable why we do, but it is very common. And I just, I hope that people see this and think, you know what? Bearing in mind the way the world is right now, I think lots of us have got certain issues going on, whether it's financial pressures through mortgages or food banks or whatever. Everyone's got it. And so it's I think it's all right to admit it a little bit. I think we've got nothing to lose by doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's the hardest thing to talk about stuff, it's the hardest thing. I think what Dele did was incredibly brave. I feel a bit sad for him that the media sort of, from what he said, the media has sort of forced that interview a bit earlier than he would have liked, which is, the state of media. It's never been any different in this country, really. The tabloids are horrific. But I think it's the hardest thing to talk about, and what he did was incredibly brave. And, I think he's right in what he's saying. Hopefully it helps people. It helps people sort of realise they're not alone and everyone's got struggles going on.
Maybe it's very cathartic for him as well.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
I think we've all got mates, right, who will, first thing up, they're going to take the mick. Like, I know that the three of us have done it to each other, right? Especially Cooler and I. No offense, Cam, but Cooler and I have been at it for a while, right? And yet, but deep down, Cooler and I both know that that's not the substance of the relationship, right? And if there were issues, that the response would be normal and not jokey, right? But I think most men realize that about themselves, that they wouldn't do that if they knew that one of their mates, who they do often joke around with, if it came to them with a serious issue, you would go into, hang on a second, this, enough of the jokes. We've got to be serious now. So, yeah, if people have seen that and thought, okay, I can do that, and it won't kill all of your demons by sharing it. Sharing doesn't solve the issue, but it just means that you are comfortable with that problem. And I think in many cases that's got to be key, because if you're not comfortable with it, then you're going to run away from it and it will never get solved. But understanding what that, if you do have issues, understanding what they are and being okay with sharing it, it's that's a healthier position to be.
Well, and talking about things is cathartic, because you're never going to change an incident that happened. There's no one with mental health is ever truly fixed, in my opinion. You can obviously learn to cope with stuff, but the trauma, emotional or mental trauma, has still happened at some point. You've still got to deal with that, regardless of what coping mechanisms you employ to do so.
This is the crazy thing. My childhood was nothing like Dele's. Apart from the fact that I grew up in Milton Keynes for a bit, like he did, my childhood was nothing like his. But I know that like my parents are divorced. They divorced when I was very young, right? And so I grew up with, going to different parents on various weekends. That was normal for me. And I know that within my family, some people were like, oh, that was a problem. Will he turn out well? And maybe I didn't. I don't know. But like the point was, to me, that was normal. And I knew that from both sides, I had that support. Didn't matter whether they liked each other. I knew that they liked me. So I don't feel as if I wanted for anything. I was lucky. Most people, a lot of people, don't have that for various reasons. And like when you think about Dele and the situation that he had, like going from country to country to try and be raised somehow by it appears people who loved him but weren't invested in him, right? I mean, there is a difference there. That it's rough. Like no, I can't put myself in that position. I just know that at this point, like now is what matters, right?
Yeah,
What you do
100%.
today matters. I can't change the past. None of us can. But how you view the day will affect how the day goes. Will affect. I mean, maybe that sounds, claptrap, happy claptrap. I don't know, but I genuinely think that that's true. And so if the people out there who can understand that, like, this is, I've got issues. Yes, we all do. But we together we are stronger, right? I mean, Dele said that in the interview himself. He's learned that as a group we can help each other.
No, absolutely. And look, I don't think any of us. I think all of us would say we can't wait to see him back in action, hopefully, and getting better mentally, but also getting his career back on track, because he's one of the, during that Poch era, that we had some cracking players, didn't we? Let's be honest, and a wonderful team, but he was such a good player. I mean, that goal at Crystal Palace, the flick up, turn and volley, the technique. I was watching some, because obviously a lot of people have put a lot of his goals on Twitter over the last few days, and they've been filling up my timeline, and it's been joyous, really, to be honest, watching some of those goals back and remembering when we were really good, like really good. But some of his goals, the flick against the Goons,
Goal at United. There was those two goals in Chelsea, and he just did it with aplomb. And it hits the inside part of the post and into the net, and it's a 3-2 win, I think. 3-1.
3-1,
yeah.
That's my favourite Dele goal. Absolutely.
Which
that
one? The Chelsea one.
He gets it on the full.
Dyer lifting it over, Dele running on, first touch, and then before the ball's even really bounced,
he's Kane for the second touch, wasn't it?
No, it was Dyer. It was Dyer who hit that ball over. Yeah.
Okay.
But that was like I remember celebrating the other goal in that Chelsea game much more, which was a scramble, and he kind of shanked it in with his left foot.
Yeah.
I really celebrated that goal. But that first one, I was like, did that really happen?
Yeah.
Because not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with Dele. Like, you look at Dele, he's got decent close control. He's good at nutmegs, right? That was his thing.
Yeah.
But he's not necessarily fast. He doesn't have a great shot, but he found himself in the right positions.
Shot, actually, I would say he's got quite a weak shot, but his placement and his positioning.
Yeah, he understood the game, and like there are players like that. We all look at Kane, and Kane is technically fantastic and one of the best players I've ever seen at Spurs, probably the best. If you looked at what he can do with both feet and anywhere on the pitch, he's an intelligent player. But someone like Dele who makes a difference. Do you know what I mean? That's what his role was to be the difference maker. And Eriksen was a great player. Kane is a great player. Son, all of that team were individually very good, but the it factor, the wow factor, came from Dele and no one else really.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. I've seen a lot of people sort of almost getting a bit swept away, really, and saying re-sign him. He could work in an Ange system. What's your take on that, Cam?
Never really thought of that. If you play two up front, but I don't know. Yeah, it could work. I wishfully want it to work.
Would you sign him or not?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That surprised me, actually. HG? Why?
Part of me thinks. Can I just extend? A part of me thinks that Dele has some unfinished business here. A part of me just the romantic side of me thinks that he wants to redeem maybe a couple of those years where he just went downhill. And I think Dele plays on emotion a fair bit and plays on instinct far more than actual system. And if you played him up front, I don't know if he's an overall. He could work. You'd be putting him up front though. Part of me, the romantic side, thinks yes.
I love the process you go through when I ask you a question and you sort of work through it out loud. I love it, Cam. Yeah, it's great. HG?
What was Dele's position at Spurs first time around?
Ghosting midfielder, plays behind the striker.
I mean, and that's just it. It was kind of everything. I mean, that front four we had with Desk, they all did different things at different times. Sometimes you'd see Eriksen as the furthest forward because Kane had dropped deep and some was out wide and Dele was playing a bit deeper too. So like that, and that was the beauty of that attack more than anything. So Dele, you look at him and you think, look, he's not going to be the traditional Ange winger. So he's going to be either an 8 or that false 9 striker. Again, like if we've got the ball in their pitch, you don't need a number 9 holding the defenders, in place. You don't need that. What you want is to have people making runs and little flicks and tricks, and that could suit Dele much more. I struggle to see where Dele's going to fit in at Everton. If Dyche plays the way that Dyche usually does, Dele is. I mean, it's a tough one, but like as long as there's no money, I mean, I wouldn't really want to pay a fee for him. But considering Everton didn't really pay a fee for him in the first place, I don't know if they actually
fair, doesn't it? Really,
it does seem a little bit fair. Like, you know what, Dele, you know what, just go where you want to go, and if that's Spurs, brilliant. We could do with someone like that because he's clearly a skillful player, but it's more of an addition to the squad than like what you want the squad to be consisted of. Does that make sense? Like kind of the luxury player that you would love to come on, that you could start in certain games.
X factor.
But because the system is different to what Pochettino did, because his midfield was a lot stronger. Dembele and whoever it was next to him, I forget now, Wanyama, right? Yeah. Like those two held their own in midfield. And I'm not sure that system really exists now. So but yeah, like if it the romantic in me said, look, I'd love to see him in a Spurs shirt again. Like a happy Dele in a Spurs shirt playing for an attacking manager. We all want to see that again because we all think that you'd see a fantastic football player again. You really would.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have to say on this personally, I think he needs to look forward, not back, and I'm not sure going to Spurs would be that helpful for him. Actually, personally, that's my take on it. So,
you'd be looking for someone to play the style of football that Pochettino played, right?
Yes, it is.
And it's weird. Like he talked a lot about Poch in the interview and said how Pochettino was the type of manager that he really needed at that point. That he, I don't want to push him in that direction, obviously.
No,
right? But like, if Dele's thinking about the type of football and the type of manager, then there are going to be a few options in English football that would suit him more than Everton do. Spurs fans want him back because we want to see those days again.
Yeah.
If he was 31, 32, we wouldn't have this conversation, right? But the fact that he's only 27 means that we know he's got, if he gets things right, 5-6 years at the top level. And we want to see that Spurs, that Dele again for Spurs. But I think the most important thing is that we see that Dele again, just not against Spurs.
Very, 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 very close friends with James Maddison, by the way.
Serious?
Always round,
really?
always round each other's houses.
And Chilwell.
In fact,
Chelsea's Chilwell.
in fact, my contact in the Maddison camp regularly goes around and plays games of poker with Maddison and Dele.
Dele's
best years were with Eriksen. He needed a 10 there to get those goals in. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's all true. So But yeah, the important thing is not that. I mean, like, we all want Spurs to get better, but let's face it. The important thing is that Dele gets better. That's more important than Spurs. I do believe that, genuinely. I'm not just saying it. Like, it's football is a game. It's a really important game that costs us a lot of money, but it's a game, and it's not worth
I said that
anything
to
else.
someone the other day. They got really angry at me. Like, I'm like, it is just a game. It is just a game. In fact, I was playing Tuesday night, and I got I wouldn't say it was an open goal I'd just missed, but I'd volleyed it over the bar. It was pouring down with rain. It was greasy pitch. That was my excuse. Anyway, my Apple Watch starts going, and it's the missus, and all I see is, I need you here now. I'm thinking, Then I read the second bit, which is, my daughter has puked everywhere. So I had to literally come off the pitch, leave the guys a man down, and boot it home in my football gear. It is just a game. It's not as important as your family or your life or your health. And that is, I'm pretty sure that's
Families
true.
cost more as well. Football costs a lot, but families cost more.
100%. Divorces are easy to get, but very expensive. Trust me. Let's talk transfers. All right. My question for you both: why have we not signed a centre back? Twitter is outraged. There are people calling it a disgrace. It's disgusting. Daniel Levy's let down the club again. I mean, I'm saying most of this is pretty moronic, if I'm being really honest. But not signing a specifically left-sided centre-back so far, despite Tapsoba and VDV being in the frame. Cam, what's going down? Why haven't we signed anyone yet? And if you could fill long enough for me to recharge my glass, I would appreciate
Get your garnish.
it. Just ice tonight. I'm just drinking a bit of rum and coke. Yeah.
So obviously Sanchez wants to
The bluey's for you, Cam. The bluey's for you.
Oh, gee. I think it's a watch this space situation. I'm desperate. We need two quick or fast centre backs coming into this season. I'm explaining the bloody obvious, but I'm interested to see what happens with Rodon and Sanchez first. Clearly, Levy wants to sever a lot of wages in the squad. And I do think VDV's more likely than Tapsoba from what I'm hearing, but I could be completely wrong. I think he wants to push out a couple before he gets a couple in. I do think, I have a feeling VDV will come in, but I'm interested in Romero to see what actually happens with him, because if we get two in, say Tapsoba and VDV, and then the Adebayo or whatever his name is from Fulham is a potential. I have this feeling Romero's indicated he wants to go. So it's a matter of, well, the offset would be getting these two new CBs in and Romero leaving. I think there's a bit of negotiation and horse trading at play at the moment amongst them all. So it's a wait and see situation for me. I can't give you a definite, but I think with it, everything's current tense at the moment. I think VDV I think he's almost there, but it's still the off season. How much time have we got? We've got another 3 to 4 weeks until things start. So
yeah, first game's August 13th. So yeah, a month. Yeah,
I think you're going to notice something within the next 7 days of maybe Tapsoba or VDV coming in. Because I do think Rodon and or Sanchez, something will move there. And if Tapsoba comes in, I'm almost sure that Romero is going to be leaving. So they can get money into Romero. I just think I'm going as per rumour, so I'm not being really knowledgeable, but I can't see either. The centre-backs are probably going to be sold that they want to start. And if Romero's on the bench, and let's be honest, Romero's focus last year wasn't on us, it was on Spurs. It was on the World Cup. The odd rumour I hear that he wants to go elsewhere, maybe to Spain or whatever. I'm just reading that rumour. It's rumour. Maybe then that's where we get our money back on outlaying two defenders. I hope I'm very wrong, but I'm just playing the rumour game there because I don't think Rodon and I don't think Sanchez have much future left here.
I'll be honest, I forgot that Joe Rodon even played for the club. So
Yeah.
Congratulations,
No
caller.
disrespect.
Congratulations.
But I see a lot of comments coming in. Let's go for a few of them. It takes time to get your right signings. Look at Rice, for instance. Patience, they'll come sooner or later. I hope it's sooner.
100 million.
We need them. Not signing a centre back seems like poor planning. Important position for us. Yes, it is. We're working on the centre back situation. Calm down, dear. It'll be sorted out by the time we start the new season. And I think with this, my take on it, and then I'll absolutely come to you, HG, because I know you'll have a lot to say as ever. But my take on this is, if you look at the players we've signed in the window, it's been easy, right? Because Maddison had no options. We were his only option on the table. Leicester wanted to sell him. It was just about the fee. Easy. Yeah, fairly easy. Oh, and by the way, Daniel Levy likes the player personally. When Daniel Levy knows the player and likes the player, a la Sissoko, it is so much easier because he's more willing to fork out, right? So all we need is a centre-back that Daniel Levy's heard of and rates, and we'll be all. That's probably why we're in for Harry Maguire. Let's be honest. But I know, shock. But that is the way. I'm sure that's convinced that's the way it works. If you look at Solomon, obviously, easy deal, right? So the players we've signed have all been easy. I think these centre backs are harder to get over the line because the clubs don't particularly want to let them go. There's a lot of negotiation. We know, regardless of whether we like it or not, our beloved Daniel likes to drive a very hard bargain and likes to think he's got a bargain, even when he blatantly hasn't. And I see, we've lined Longley up as a back, as a sort of a fullback position. So I think the panic a little bit in the supporter base is they've seen how many goals we conceded last season, seen the defence looking weak. I agree with you, by the way, HG. I think that is partly due to the system, because if you put immense pressure on any defence in the Premier League, they're going to let a lot of goals in, and our system encouraged pressure on the centre-backs, which therefore your mistake percentage is going to be higher, and so on and so on. So I think there's a lot of mileage in that discussion. That said, I think Dyer's got the turning circle of a QE2. I think proved himself last season is not the answer. Romero, incredibly hot-headed, but I think actually he can flourish in an Ange system where we're pressing higher up the pitch. I don't think Romero is going anywhere, by the way. I think he's absolutely locked and loaded for this season. But I think it's clear we need to sign a left centre-back. So my take on it would be, though, we will get one in at least, probably two, but the second will probably be the person you don't really want to see, unfortunately. But HG, I'm interested in your take. Why is it taking so long? And which of the centre-backs do you see us ending up with? Or someone completely left field who we haven't even considered?
Is this where I say, pay the money, Levy, pay the money?
We can do.
Look, I mean, let's be fair. Van der Ven, if we went out and spent what Wolfsburg wanted, he'd be at Spurs right now. I do believe that.
Yeah.
Right? Tapsoba is less... I'm surprised that the link is even there, to be honest, because Leverkusen are a decent team. They've spent money on Xhaka, but they're trying to sell Diaby. If they sell Diaby and I'm Tapsoba, I'm thinking, you know what, it's time to go. Like, Leverkusen have good players. They do have good young, and they've always had good young players. But you might be thinking, if that cycle isn't changing, we're only ever going to, the best we can hope for in the German league is third or fourth, right? Because Dortmund, Leipzig, and Bayern are probably ahead of them. So maybe I want to go and get some more money at Spurs. I think that might be Tapsoba's thinking. I would much prefer Tapsoba, but Spurs have to decide what they want to do. And it does appear as if the money that we spend on centre-backs will be based on how much money we're bringing in. And I hate that, because it shouldn't be. I think certainly one of those two, if they're the two that we've spent time actually negotiating for and have clearly, or if you believe the rumours, clearly decided they are the top two on our list, then one of them should have happened. And if that was... Go on, but if that was the cheaper one, so be it. right? If it ended up being Van der Ven for that reason, so be it. But one of them, certainly I would say by the beginning of August. I don't care so much about this tour, if I'm honest. It would be nice for them to get to know each other and to spend time on the training pitch with each other and in friendlies with each other. But you need someone that basically, if Romero's going to be your attack dog in that pressing Ange system, then you need someone who isn't that on the other side, right? Someone who's going to be like, I'm going to be the sweeper. I'm going to have the one who's got the pace to deal with any mistakes that you might have created by missing the ball or whatever. And either one of those would work in that system, but you need to have them. The idea that I can't believe the club is thinking, well, maybe Rodon could do that, or maybe like Sanchez could do that. You'd have to hope that's gone, right? So it's a tough one because, like I've said on previous shows, I don't think centre backs in Ange's system need to adapt too much. The idea is they don't have the ball that much, right? It's given on to other players. The six is the one who's starting the moves, and the centre backs are there just to move the ball on. They're not there to do much else than that. So I don't think the adaptation period should be too difficult, but I would rather they were in certainly before August comes around. I'd like those two preseason games in Europe. One at the new stadium against Donetsk, and then the other one in Barcelona. Like, I want to see a starting 11 worthy side in one of those games, and that means they have to be signed. Two more weeks would be enough for me.
Yeah,
Van der Ven to me is probably not the one we want, and I think that as much as anything else is what's holding. So they want a big fee for him, right? They want what, 40 million euros,
something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a big fee for a player who's just come on the scene. And I know people say just spend the money, Levy, and all the rest of it, but I think this next move is a really crucial. I think it's a really crucial signing. It's not something they can afford to get wrong. And I don't necessarily think he is the player that people on Twitter think he is, because he's not polished and finished. He's a raw prospect, isn't he?
He's a work in progress.
Yeah, and do we want a work in progress, or do we want to take our time and get the absolute right person?
Okay, right. So this comment, Daniel, absolutely. We all agree this should have happened last year. We all agree on that. Like the fact that was Romero the last centre back we bought? Do you know what I mean? Like it feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, probably is actually.
Romero is probably the last centre back we bought. Huh?
Longley, I suppose, if you include loan
No.
signing.
Longley was always that short-term move, as he would be if he signed this summer.
Mm.
It would be a short-term thing, and the club know that, and I'm sure Longley knows that.
Yeah.
He's happy. Like it sounds, he's happy. He's going to be paid his Barcelona salary regardless. Where he plays on loan, he kept.
How many Kane's on? Thanks very much.
Yeah, but like where he plays, yeah, he obviously cares a bit more. He'd probably prefer to be at Spurs, having been there for a year. But I just think that, this has to have. This was it more urgent than signing Maddison? No, I think they were probably about the same. Was it more urgent than signing a goalkeeper? Yeah, I think it was. As much as I like Vicario, and I think he can do what Ange wants. The idea was that we've all said for at least 2 seasons we need a left-sided centre-back, right? Vertonghen left in 2020, and we haven't had a left-footed centre-back at that club since then. Like Longley, to me, short-term doesn't count. We've needed that. We needed someone to partner Toby. We ended up having to shift Toby to that side because Sanchez couldn't do it. We know Sanchez can't do it. So it's a massive thing. And so Van der Ven, look, I do believe that Wolfsburg defence, he was a part of it, but he wasn't it, right? Mm. But what options do we have? Like, if you want someone who can show those angles that a left-footed player can do, we've had to play Ben Davies as the left-sided centre-back because no one else could really do it.
Yeah.
It's a massive
issue. It's a massive issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a massive issue. Here's the question for you guys: do we really need 2 centre backs, or is one enough with us only playing 2 centre backs?
No, we need 2. Like, do any of us think that Sanchez, Rodon, Tanganga, or Dyer have a long-term future at the club?
Well, you say long term, but I'm talking about for the season ahead.
Yeah, but I'm thinking I'm not thinking about season ahead is great, but a club with Spurs are with the defensive options we have, we should be thinking long term. We should be thinking Romero's here. Maybe he won't stay more than one season, but he's here. Like if you have a sporting director, you have to understand that where Spurs are in the food chain, players might move on. So you
Yes.
have to be thinking
Yeah.
long term. You can't just be saying, okay, we need someone for now. Like if you buy a left-footed centre-back now and we have him and Romero for 1 year, okay, that's solved the issue for 1 year. But if that left-footed centre-back gets injured, well, guess what?
Ben
You're
Davies.
screwed again. You're screwed again. You need two. We need two. They don't have to be left-footed, but they certainly need to be comfortable on that left-hand side.
Toby and Alderweireld we're purchasing.
Can I just float this though?
Toby,
So you've got Romero as your first choice right centre back. We agreed.
Yes.
That comment.
Well, right now, yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You've got Dyer as the understudy to that, right?
I'm scared there.
I suppose.
But within the squad right now, yeah.
But the thing is, Dyer doesn't have the characteristics that an Ange centre back.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So, maybe Ange might have Sanchez or even Tanganga ahead of Dyer as a backup. I really do believe that.
Yeah. Ooh. Tanganga will be ahead of Dyer.
I think, if you talk about what Ange wants from a centre back, right? Like Tanganga doesn't fit it for me. But an Ange centre-back needs to have pace because they've got half a pitch to cover if the ball goes over the top.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Dyer doesn't have it. So,
No.
so even Rodon, I mean, I like Dyer as a person and actually as a player. I don't mind him. But in the system that Ange plays, the only position that he can really play is that 6.
Yep.
That's the only position that suits Dyer in an Ange system, and it doesn't really suit him and the way he is as a player.
Not fast enough, yeah. Like I said, in circle of the QE too.
Maybe you could have Dyer play. This sounds stupid. Maybe you could have Dyer be a fullback who joins into midfield like Ange does. Dyer could do that, right? More than he could be a centre back in Ange's system. He doesn't fit Ange's system as a centre back at all.
No.
Okay. So, all right, then you've got Sanchez as the understudy. Moving on. And on the left side, right?
Yeah, I think right now, I think Ange would. Absolutely. I do.
Right now on the left side, say we sign one of these players, VDV or Tapsoba, then your understudy to that is Ben Davies, no?
If you only sign one. Oh my gosh, who would I be? Yeah, that person.
Yeah.
If you only
this is actually where I think we'll end up, and I think people get very outraged and very angry about it, but I think this is where we end up.
Yeah, if you're talking about left-sided players, well, we know Sanchez can't do that. Rodon has played left side before, so he would have that in his favour. Like he seems to be more comfortable down there. Tanganga probably is the same is true there. I don't feel like Tanganga has a side. He's equally comfortable. I didn't say good, but I think he's equally comfortable in those positions. Whereas Sanchez isn't comfortable down the left.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Hasn't Tanganga's played slightly more right though?
Yeah, I mean he's a right-footed player, so logically, but I mean he's played left back just as well as he played right back. I think that he's a defender first and foremost. But I don't Again, I don't really want him to be a backup.
I don't rate him.
His first reserve is probably the better phrase, but I don't. So yeah, okay. What do you Davies doesn't really have the characteristics of an Ange centre back either.
What?
Right?
Because he's poor distribution, do you mean?
No. Actually, I think to me, an Ange centre back will do what Van Dijk does, and basically just sit on the halfway line and mop up. That's their job. There's a reason why Liverpool went and bought Konate. Konate is basically Van Dijk regen. 6'5", super fast. Doesn't have to be anything else, right? In their system, you don't have to be much more than that, right? Because if you're dominating possession and you have the ball and teams have backed off for that, because they realise that they can't work through you. I mean, that's the weird thing. We're going to see a lot of teams this season who want to do that. So you'll see pressing against pressing. You won't see teams sitting back.
True.
But I just feel that given the centre backs that we have, I don't rate Rodon at all because I don't think he's got it mentally. But if you're thinking left-sided in an Ange system behind the new signing, probably Rodon should be there.
Okay. See, where I agree. Right. So in a utopian world, I would absolutely go out and spend 50 million on each on two very good centre backs. That'd be lovely. Maybe two left-sided ones. In reality, I think what we'll probably end up with, because this isn't Football Manager, I think we'll end up with. Sorry to depress everyone. Romero, right centre back with, an understudy. I don't think Dyer's going anywhere this season, so he'll be there. I think Sanchez will leave. I think it's likely Tanganga will go maybe on loan or maybe stay as a second choice backup. And then on the left, I think Rodon will go if we can offload him, to be honest. And I think Ben Davis will be the understudy, and the player we bring in will be a left-sided centre back. That's what I would expect to happen. Genuinely,
it's crazy. Like, I mean, I don't want to talk about that lot down the road, but they spent 30 million on Gabriel from the French league that none of us had ever really heard of, right? And then the following summer, they spent 50 million on Ben White. And then, of course, Saliba, they spent 30 million on and then stuck him out on loan for a few years. So they spent money, serious money. And now they've just bought Timber today for another 40 million euros.
By the way, I'm very jealous. I'm more jealous of that signing than Declan Rice. I think Timber is quality.
So, but this is the thing. Like they are maybe they're trying to recreate what Man City have done by playing four centre backs, but they've invested heavily in that.
Timber can play fullback. He's shit up.
Yeah, but like Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, they're all 20 million, 25 million plus. So Spurs need to be doing that. There's really no excuse.
£30 million players, just ask Davo.
But again, like, I don't care about the cost. Davo does, but that's Davo's weirdo thing, right? But like the point is, we have to be investing. We've spent 40 million on Romero, and then before that it was Rodon. When was Rodon? When Mourinho was in charge.
Mourinho was,
right? So that's 2020. So
we wanted Skriniar and we got Joe Rodon.
I understand, but all of those signings, like there are players like Villa have gone out and signed Pau Torres. I don't think Pau Torres is particularly suited to an Ange system either, but they've gone out and bought experienced defenders who have played at a high level for a long time. Yeah. Spurs can do that. We don't need to be looking for Van der Ven, who's 22. Tapsoba has played Bundesliga football for 3 years probably now.
Yeah.
That's pretty experienced. He's played Champions League. He's played Europe every season.
I would have no problem with signing him whatsoever. I think he's a good defender.
So we have to do it. We have to do it. The money, like again, we have the money that Leverkusen don't. Leverkusen would be happy to take that money. What, caller?
Why is it not done?
Why is it not done? Because the people in charge have decided that we have other issues or cash flow problems or whatever they've chosen to do. I don't know. It's Leverkusen and more Spurs. I think Leverkusen, they don't like selling their better players, but they understand they do. Every season they do. They will sell someone. So they may not want to sell more than one. They may well think that now that Xabi Alonso's in charge, they'd like to keep everyone around for a year. But usually, right now, outside the Premier League, everyone has to sell before they buy, pretty much. So, if
us, who've bought a stack load of players and now can't sell them.
but we haven't bought a centre back.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, the fact that we've bought Rodon, who we can't shift. Well, okay, at 11 million, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter so much that we can't shift him, right? Yeah. But there are players that Spurs need to be looking at. And Tapsoba, if he was the number one choice, we could make that deal happen. And maybe we overpay, but we all sat here 2 seasons ago and thought that Arsenal overpaid for Ben White.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, as a centre-back, they probably did. But he's turned into a right-back. So
Yeah.
it's just like at some point we have to spend and trust ourselves. Like if we're at the top end of the food chain, which Spurs are, we're not at the very top, but we are at the top end of it. We have to eat more.
And on that bombshell, I'm off to get some pork scratchings down my neck. Cam, it's been a pleasure watching you. Watching you perform tonight. Let's hope the Aussies that are over here don't perform when next they take the cricket pitch.
Oh, I hope they do. Where is the next test, by the way? Is it up north
or
or
something?
what?
Headingley. I think is it Headingley?
I want to say Headingley too, but didn't
last
they play
test,
the last one at Headingley? They might have.
The last one. Old Trafford.
Is it at the
Old
Oval?
Trafford yet?
Oh, it's Old Trafford. That's it.
Yeah.
it's
I
The
think
Old
Oval
Trafford.
is usually the last one. I
Oval's
think.
last. Yeah. Old Trafford next. Yeah.
It's been a good series.
I just
Even
hope.
for a neutral.
I just really hope because we've got a bit of crap weather here for the next week or so. I really hope that doesn't like.
It would be fair. Like the amount of series I remember England not losing because of the weather.
Because of the weather, yeah. But we are going to lose this one because of the weather if we're not careful. That's the problem.
Maybe.
So there we go. But look, Cam, always a pleasure to have you on with your Aussie insight.
It's good to be on, and looking forward to Ange's first match in Perth, I think. So
when is it next week? What day?
Tuesday night, which would be Tuesday morning for you, which is cheese room viewing time for me on a Tuesday morning. So it's true. So
instead of which you'll be hosting it, mate.
Oh, 100%, mate. Yeah, after
you could do a watch along.
Could do actually. I'll speak to JP and Davo about that, and any other Aussies.
Get on it. Davo's had long enough now to settle into his new abode. He's been there a day.
Well, the interesting thing is I've got to find which channel it is on this down here. It could be Channel 9, SBS, Channel 7, Channel 10. I've got to find out. Still looking.
It's on Spurs Play. Haven't you signed up for Spurs Play, Cam? You can watch that anywhere.
That's a good shout. Get Spurs Play on, and then you'll be in sync with your co-Aussies.
Oh, I've got KO. So Davo's just, if that's on KO, I'll be watching on KO. I could do a live watch along, actually.
Right, that's a good shout, yeah. Can I just say catchphrases in as well? I mean, JP's alphabet's going spiffingly, so.
but caller, since you're most likely at work on Tuesday lunchtime,
vision propaganda.
Can I use your Spurs Play account, please?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I mean, no, of course you can't. That's dreadful. That's like copyright piracy or something. So no, of course not. No problem. Right. HG, pleasure to have you on from Vienna.
Cheers. It was good to be on. I hope my fridge wasn't making the noises it did on Wednesday, but. Yeah, my fridge was talking during the show on Wednesday. It was quite popular, but yeah.
Where are we up to with Cam's alphabet in terms of what we've put on the tube of you? Are we up to D?
I think JP's gone up to D. I'm not sure we're going to do all 26 somehow.
I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, maybe one a week between now and Christmas might be 26, right? Something like that. If we did that, that's possible.
Yeah, we'll do it. But he's got it in his locker, mate. Until next time, thanks for watching. Do remember to subscribe, hit the like button, grab yourself a YouTube chat membership. Head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Cheese Room Podcast. £3 a month. We are dishing out merch this time of year. You too could be the proud owner of a Cheese Room mug, T-shirt, and pin badge, as seen worldwide. But until Wednesday, what day are we on? Monday. Until Monday. We'll be back on Monday with some more antics, and it's going to be getting exciting towards Ange's first game, so we might even have some team news. So there we go. In the meantime, it's a pleasure, as ever, to have you with us on the Cheese Room, and come on, you Spurs.
Coys. No one says coys.
No one says coys. Only Lucas, he's gone.
Bloody Australians. Come on, you Spurs.
God.